Nathalie, talk a bit about why you chose Salesforce, and although it's obviously early days, what difference you anticipate it's going to be making?
Well, for us, the why really started 2 years ago because the government increased the budget for active travel in Scotland, which had a massive impact on us as an organisation because we're one of a limited number of active travel delivery partners. So as a consequence, our cycling friendly funds in particular, they increased from a total of about £100,000 a year or just over that to £2 to £3 million a year. So yeah, quite a significant increase, and alongside with that, obviously the activity and the volume of activity and the applications that we were dealing with. And because we're quite a small charity who are dealing with a lot of the same issues that are quite common across the sector, really, tight budgets, low overheads, limited staff capacity, and these kinds of things. There's never really been much investment in any big systems that support what we do. Everything was quite manual. There was an additional challenge that the different programs kind of evolved at different times or came into existence at different times, and there was quite a lot of flexibility to each of the program leads to really shape it and kind of manage the program in a way that works best for them, which led to a situation where we had programs which were very similar in principle but quite different in terms of how they were being implemented and how the funds were being managed. Nothing huge really, but the small differences made a really big impact on just the ability to report on things. And if somebody was away on annual leave or off sick or something and a request came in, it was really difficult and time intensive to find the right kind of information and be able to do that. So the time burden and the admin burden of it became just worse and worse for us, to the point where there wasn't actually that much time left for us to provide more kind of in-depth support for the organizations we work with, apart from here's a chunk of money, go and build a bike shelter with it. And because it's behavior change, the kind of softer measures around it are just as, if not even more important. So it was really starting to affect our ability to just effectively reach our organizational aims and objectives. And just kind of reducing that burden to free up capacity was a big priority for us. And the decision to go ahead with this and introduce a system for our grant management was a really big step. And when we started looking into the different solutions and options that were out there, Salesforce quite quickly emerged as one of the top options. Especially also because we were working to a tight schedule for getting something in place for the summer, because we know that that's when our funds launch every year, because it is year-on-year funding that we get. What was particularly helpful for us was the possibility that the option to have 2 demo sessions with some other Scottish charities who'd been using Salesforce, where we could get a bit more of an idea of what the system looks like, what it's capable of, and the feedback from those organizations was overwhelmingly positive. It was really reassuring because we'd been using spreadsheets and Word documents and just kind of folders on a hard drive before. There wasn't very much kind of technical expertise on a big CRM system like this. And it was just reassuring to hear and see what how this could work out, because it just confirmed to us that we were actually going to be able to build something that was going to be fit for purpose, even with the limited capacity and the limited expertise. And it's definitely been a success for us. We've just nearly completed the first kind of funding round with Salesforce, and the difference is huge. The whole process is a lot more straightforward and just more pleasant to use, because the systems removed so much of that admin burden. So you don't have to spend days and weeks of going through emails, finding the applications, making sure that you've not missed anything, filing all the big zip folders with all the documents, and then populating absolute monstrosities of spreadsheets, and then reporting on all that as well. So yeah, it's just freeing up so much time already, and this is just the application side of things and the processing of the grant side of things. That's not even taking into account the kind of project reports that come in later on. And the feedback from the applicants has been really positive up until now as well, apart from some minor technical issues. Really, everybody said it's been really easy to use, really smooth and straightforward, and yeah, it's been really positive. Everybody has definitely achieved what it was supposed to.
That's amazing, Nathalie, and I think you touched on a really important point that we witness almost every time, is that people, when they get their time freed up, they get go back to the relationships with the actual people that you're engaging with, and you're not spending all your time buried in admin and paperwork, and you're getting back to the thinking about how you can do more good in the community. So it's amazing. And because you are such a small team and you were very heavily involved in the project, Nathalie, talk a bit about how you found that project implementation, particularly in terms of balancing your time, which was always the difficulty.
Yeah, like you're saying there, Elaine, we're quite a small team of 6 people, really, who all have quite a good understanding of what the other guys in the team are doing and kind of what the requirements are, what the priorities are. So it was really myself, with the support from a colleague, who are kind of designated project leads for the implementation of this, and for us that's that was really the kind of best way of balancing the amount of time and staff capacity that was going to go into it. What was helpful is that we'd had an externally facilitated session before the tender for this project even went out, to map out the whole process, and just reconfirm the requirements and the priorities, to really kind of come up with a very basic skeleton version of, these are the different steps. This is in essence what everybody is doing, just in slightly different ways. How can we make sure this becomes more consistent across the different funds? And that was particularly useful for the very initial stages of the development, where we didn't really know, what Salesforce was capable of, and kind of how the different things could look like, just to have a bit of a kind of reference document. But yeah, it was really just 2 of us who led on the whole thing and really did it. And it was a huge learning curve. I mean, I personally had never used Salesforce before, or barely any CRM for that matter, and there was really a lot to get my head around, and a lot of decisions that had to be made, because the system is so powerful and has so many options of doing things or achieving similar things. And it's really coming back to that, limited technical expertise, and kind of knowing what the best way of doing something is, and the limited capacity to spend time to really find that out, and then come out with something that's fit for purpose. And the fact that our define and development pretty much coincided with lockdown coming into effect actually really worked out in our favor in this case, because the general disruption to our day-to-day business meant that it was just really timely for us to shuffle things about internally a little bit, which freed up so much time for me and my colleague to really focus on this and spend sufficient time on it, to get to know the system, think things through in more detail, be able to jump on calls with Hyphen8 quite spontaneously to discuss and resolve stuff and talk things through, and just explore kind of collaboratively what the best solution and options would be. So even though, yep, we had a pretty good idea of what we wanted at the start, there were so many iterations through the process as we were learning about the system more and understanding it more, how it worked and what's possible, but maybe doesn't work the same way as it would in a Word document. And yeah, I think, the fact that lockdown came into effect and we had more time, that probably helped us make this process a bit more agile than it otherwise could have been, and develop that expertise of the system. I think for us mainly, the original application form was a really big piece of work because it's a kind of master form that's combining 5 different application forms into one. So there was loads of conditions in there, and for this fund it needs to do this, for that fund it needs to do that, all quite similar but slightly different. And yeah, just the learning and the kind of iterations and changes around that took up a lot of time, but we got there in the end. And I think, yeah, it's at least partly due to the fact that we had much more time than originally anticipated to focus on this, that we've come out with something that works really, really well for a phase 1 development, considering the fact that we didn't really know anything about the system before. And so, yeah, given the circumstances, it's worked out really, really well for us. And I also really enjoyed working on this and leading this project. So I think that definitely helped as well in making it easier.
That's good to hear, Nathalie. And I think you've come out with some really good points there, because it's important for sometimes smaller non-profit organizations have got, they are relying on spreadsheets and things which have worked perfectly well, but it's only when you see when you move on to a shared platform, the benefits that brings, that you really realize how much you were working around and finding ways to do things. And it's great that you've been able to free up your time to get started on this.